I just came back from a bus tour in Ohio, and we're now starting to get the campaign swing. And I tell people this campaign's still about hope. If somebody asks you, it's still about change. Washington feels as broken as it did 4 years ago. And, if you ask me what is the one thing that has frustrated me most over the last 4 years, it's not the hard work, it's not the enormity of the decisions, it's not the pace.
44 past the hour. Welcome back to Morning Joe. With us now from Capitol Hill, we have the Democratic governor of Delaware, Governor Jack Markell, who's also the newly minted chairman of the National Governors Association. Congratulations, Governor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good to have you on the show. We have been just painfully picking on Dan Senor, who, of course, represents the Romney campaign.
Like coming here is like Stockholm Syndrome.
I'm sorry. I know it's going to be tough for you. You're going to have a very tough week, given all this stuff. I'm going to let you have the first question with the governor.
Sure. Hey, Governor.
Good morning.
Basic question. You have a successful business background. You're now engaged in public service. If you were running against President Obama, given the economic record of the last 41 months, would you be focusing this election on the economy? Would you be making the case against Obama on the economy the same way Governor Romney is?
I actually think the president's taken some incredibly important steps in terms of making the economy better. I mean, if you look at it, 28, 29 months in a row of job growth across the country. He recently signed the Jobs Act, which was terrific. It makes it easier for companies to go public because they found that so many companies create jobs after they go public. He's been focused on export promotion. He's been focused on foreign direct investment. So I think I'm not sure I'm the best one to give that advice.
But unemployment above 8% for 41 months. 500,000 net job losses since he's been president. He hasn't talked about Obamacare. He's talked very little about the stimulus. I mean, why isn't he focusing on these great successes if he's trying to make the case that you're trying to make, which is the economy is actually doing better than the numbers point to?
I think he realizes that there's a lot more to be done. In fact, he's the first one to realize it. I mean, nobody's satisfied with unemployment where it is, but he clearly stepped in. He inherited an economy in free fall. I remember the first National Governors Association meeting I went to a couple of years ago. It was in February of 2009. It was probably the most sobering meetings I've ever sat through. We met with the head of OMB, we met with the Secretary of the Treasury, the head of the Federal Reserve. And at the time, they really were not certain what was, we were at an abyss, particularly with the freezing of the financial markets. We weren't sure what was on the other end. And while it's not as good as any of us would want it to be, thank God we've stepped back from something that was so awful at the time.
So, Joe Scarborough, listening to the governor and Dan talk about these very important, extremely legitimate questions, isn't it also not only easier but effective to be taking the tack that the Obama campaign is taking on Romney's record, his tax returns, as well as his history with Bain?
Right. You're not going to hear Barack Obama. You're not going to hear Joe Biden. You're not going to hear the Obama campaign talking about what the governor has to talk about every day in Delaware and what governors across America have to talk about. And that is, how are they going to get people back to work over the next 4 years? How are they going to balance their budget? How are they going to take care of shortfalls? And, Governor, with all due respect, you may be talking about these things in your home state. You may even be talking about what Barack Obama's done over the past 4 years. But their focus, if you look at where they're investing their money and where they're investing their time, is class warfare against Mitt Romney. What he did at Bain Capital back in the 1990s, what he did on his own tax returns. We start talking about what governors have to talk about every day, and that is telling their voters how the next 4 years are going to be better.
Well, first of all, I think if you're Mitt Romney and you're running based on your experience in the private sector, that experience is absolutely fair game. I also, as you mentioned, I have a private sector background, and I think we have learned very different things from our backgrounds. I mean, I think private equity can be very, very helpful. We've benefited in Delaware. But at the same time, if you're a private equity CEO, your constituency are your shareholders. Your constituency, it's not your neighbors, it's not teachers, it's all about the bottom line. And if in the meantime that's good for the community, so be it. But as you can tell from some of the decisions that Mitt Romney made at Bain with some of the companies and some of the decisions that they made, he realized that looking out for neighbors and teachers was not really his job. And I think one of the things as governor, you've really got to figure out how you're going to build a strong middle class. And I think this election poses an unbelievable choice where the president is focused, how do we continue to improve schools? How do we focus on job training to make sure that there's skilled workers available?
I've got to cut you off there, Governor. I don't see an unbelievable choice between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. As John Meacham said on Friday, I see a depressing choice at times by two different campaigns running two very cynical campaigns where they're spending millions and millions of dollars on 30-second ads, and they just keep attacking each other. What campaign are you listening to? I'm not hearing about ideas about what we do over the next 4 years to make America better. I'm looking at two candidates attacking each other about what they did in the past.
Listen, I think that's what gets a lot of the media attention. But that being said, I think they've laid out two very different platforms. I think for me, the defining moment on the Republican side was when Mitt Romney joined 7 other leaders of running for president last August in Iowa. None of them would take the 10-to-1 spending to revenue deal. And at the same time, the president is focusing on a strategy that will build a strong middle class. I think it's quite different, even if that's not getting what is most of the attention from the press.
All right, but Governor, even if so let's talk about fiscal responsibility. I'm so glad you brought it up, because when none of the Republican candidates would raise their hands when given a 10-to-1 spending opportunity, everybody laughed and said, God, they are fiscally reckless. Well, Barack Obama said in February of 2009, 1 month after getting into office, that Social Security was going to go bankrupt, that Medicare was a major crisis waiting to happen, and we couldn't, quote, kick the can down the road. Well, he's kicked the can down the road for 4 years. He had a presidential debt commission. They got thrown under the bus. If you want to talk about Mitt Romney's recklessness and irresponsibility, that's fine. What shouldn't the President of the United States have done something to save Social Security, to save Medicare? Shouldn't he have embraced Simpson Bowles?
My sense, first of all, is I do think that last year, when the debt limit was getting so much attention, he tried to make something work. Obviously, that fell apart with the Speaker. There's no question that we've got a lot of work to do in that area, and in the meantime, we've got to make sure we're putting people back to work. I think he would be the first one to say, in fact, I've heard him say it, that we have to continue to do better. We have to continue to make the economic climate better, so we're putting more people back to work. And I absolutely believe he has laid out a strategy to do just that.
All right, Governor Jack Markell, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Still ahead, Time Magazine's Joe Klein, also senior advisor to the Romney campaign. Kevin Madden, Morning Joe, in just a moment.